What is going on, you guys? This is Psycho Power Ranger once again, here to bring you some more information that you need to know about Guild Wars 2 so that your Guild Wars 2 experience will be amazing. Let's hop into it. So, the Engineer is very unique in its own right. One of the things that I noticed right off the bat is the whole, it doesn't have a second weapon switch. So they're like, how are we supposed to fix this? Because since they can't switch into another weapon, what can we do to make them still have all sorts of customizations? They sell this with toolkits, and there's all sorts of toolkits out there. They've got the Elixir Gun, which is like the support abilities, slowing down enemies, buffing allies. It has all sorts of implications. My favorite is that it has the ability to heal, and you can swap yourself into a healing role as the Engineer, allowing them to serve a very high-end healing ability with the use of the Elixir Gun. But it isn't just used for that. You can also put many conditions on your enemies, not like heavy, it's going to kill them off, but it is in a very large area that allows it to be done. So instead of single target condition damage, it's more of an area of effect condition damage, and that's actually really good. And that makes it more so used for PvE than PvP, because against high tier PvP players, they're going to be bunching up. But it might see use actually in it because of its healing and its ability to slow down enemies and cause crowd control. You've also got your Flamethrower, which is your area of effect, damage over time abilities. It's honestly not my favorite, but it could have its uses in some way, shape, or form. It's just like fire damage and just general damage in general. You got the toolkit, which is namely used to repair your turrets, but it also has some implications of itself, having a mix of AoE, crowd control with its cripples and bleeds, on top of the ability to push enemies to you and then confuse them. Then you've got your med kit, which is just your straight up healing. It will provide healing for your allies, remove their conditions, and give them swiftness. Let's keep moving on. The kits really aren't what I'm excited about with the Engineer. Of course, that is what they do to give the Engineer more viability in their skills, because it goes in their skill set, which most people know at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are your skills, except for the med kit, which I believe only has 3. I like about the Engineers as well is when you choose skills and utility, it puts them up in your Fs, which is really cool because you can get all sorts of bonus extra effects. Be sure, as a good Engineer, to take good advantage of these. You, as an Engineer, have to juggle tons of different skills because they move them out of your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bar and into kits and your F skills to make you most viable. When it comes to turrets, they even get their own abilities that can be used there, and then when you activate them, also makes detonations. The best way to do this is to go ahead and activate your abilities, then drop your turrets, because you lose those abilities when you have a turret up. So in my opinion, the turrets are what makes the Engineer amazing. I know that that's really gimmicky, but in PvE, the turrets are phenomenal. You've got your damaging turrets like the Thumper, the Rocket Turret, Rifle Turret, and Flame Turret. These can cause heavy pressure on NPCs via flame damage, which is AoE, which then can be activated with blind, which is my favorite of all the activations. You got your rocket turrets, which are just heavy damage in general, as well as your rifle turret, which is just constant, steady damage on an opponent. And finally, you got your Thumper, which has tons of health and seems to grab a lot of aggro on its own. So that will allow itself to do AoE damage and pull enemies together, which you can then do AoE combos on. My favorite turret, however, would be the Net Turret, because it will also give you an F skill that allows you to immobilize. And then if you have the rifle, which is my favorite weapon, you get to immobilize with that. And then finally, you get to immobilize again with the Net Turret itself. So you can keep something pinned down for a very long time. And I think this is one of the greatest aspects of the Engineer, is their ability to use short duration conditions, but in a freaking amount of time. The fact of the matter is, the Engineer has the ability to use a section of conditions on its F bar. It can use conditions via its regular weapon bar, and then it can use conditions via its utility bar. On top of that, when you switch in a new utility, then your next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skills have more conditions. Now most of these conditions aren't very long duration, so you will not be able to stack them very long, but you will be able to do all sorts of damage to your opponents, but you'll be able to keep constant conditions on your enemies in all sorts of types, be it confusion or fire, cripple, chill, all of them. They're all there and they can use them however they need to do it to get the job done. And that's one of the very powerful aspects of the engineer, as well as doing AoE micro conditions. Micro meaning they have a short duration. Now, if that was enough, they also do have their elixirs, and elixirs are also a very unique ability for the engineer. They can provide almost every single buff in a micro buff, allowing themselves fury, might, swiftness, converting all conditions into boons, recovering stun, and refreshing your endurance, and endurance is huge. That's 4 free rolls. Stun recovery and evading attacks for 4 seconds, and my personal favorite, getting a random boon and then getting a skill, like usually they're a wall skill, that allows you to go invisible, increased speed, cause just a random wall, which is really cool. On top of those, all their F effects are kind of like utility skills. My original thoughts about the engineer was that they weren't a very good utility class, but that's not the case. They can be very powerful in support if they spec into the elixir gun and the med kit, and then the other 2 slots being elixirs in themselves. This will give them all sorts of skills on their bar that they can throw that will give their allies kind of similar effects to their own applicable skills in the utilities. Something also to keep in mind is the engineers do not have signets, so passive effects are not in their ball game. So if you really like passive effects and signets, the engineer is definitely not for you, and that's definitely one of their downsides is no signets, because passive effects are pretty awesome. The number 1 biggest problem with the engineer is the lack of weaponry. Even though they do have all these other things with the Fs and the toolkits, they really don't have other options besides those. If you want to build a character that doesn't use weapon kits, it's going to gimp you in how much you can really do because of the lack of the second weapon. On top of that, they also do not have very many weapon choices. They have no close combat weapon choices. They only have to choose between the rifle, the pistol, and the shield, and then a second-hand pistol as well. That's only 4 weapons, and you really are pretty stinted in that case. However, it is pretty easy to just put one of your utilities as a kit, which then will also give you an F1 skill, and then you're set with all sorts of things, because the kits are pretty specific as to what they do. So if you're like, oh, I want my rifle, but I also want to do condition damage, then you just go ahead and roll the elixir gun. If you want a bunch of weapons to switch between, if you want different variety depending on your situation, you aren't going to get as much from the engineer in that case. I personally like using the net turret, rifle turret, and rocket turret, and then combine the elite that just spawns more. Then you'll get another healing turret as well as a rifle turret if you spec into it, and I believe a thumper turret, and you need to just load it. Now they also have 2 other elite skills. They also have the mortar, which will be very powerful in World v World. You can just get a couple of friends that are running with the engineer and just plop those down, and now you have a free defense on the side of your castle. As well as Elixir X, which gives you elites of other classes, allowing them to have their own viability in that case, because the Tornado from the Elementalist, let's be honest, is one of the coolest looking things ever, and the engineer can also do it, so that's something to keep in mind. I personally just think that the supply crate's the best though, but I'm pretty biased towards the of the turret, so why not? Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for watching. It's been a good time, and like this, or subscribe if you enjoy that. So I messed up this last night, and I gotta do it again. If you did like this video, we got all sorts of other ones to choose from. We got the Guardian somewhere right here, as well as the Ranger, who will be right here. And finally, we'll have the Thief down here for next time. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. You're way awesome. I love you. Different lighting angles, up close, far away. Peace out.